feel it, can't you? Things are starting to pick up, and there's a real sense that something interesting is building around this team. We've been waiting for new updates, looking for signs of what this season might actually look like. And now, we're finally getting some answers that could change the way we look at what's coming. There are a few developments that should definitely have fans paying close attention because they could end up having a bigger impact than most people expected. Before we get into everything, don't forget to smash that like button if you're excited for another Seahawks season, and drop "Go Hawks" down in the comments so we know who's riding with the team all year long. One of the biggest questions surrounding the Seattle Seahawks this offseason may have finally received its clearest answer yet. And according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the direction this offense is taking should give Seahawks fans plenty to be excited about. The overall system may look familiar at first glance, but Fowler's reporting suggests that what Seattle is building isn't simply a copy of what has existed before. Instead, it will carry its own identity while maintaining many of the principles that have already proven successful around the league. That distinction matters because there has been plenty of curiosity surrounding Brian Fleury and exactly what his offense will become once the regular season begins. There are still legitimate unknowns. Nobody has seen him call plays over the course of an NFL season in this role. Nobody has watched how he'll respond to halftime adjustments, late game situations, or defensive coordinators who spend an entire week preparing specifically to stop his offense. Those are fair questions to ask, but Fowler's latest report paints a picture that suggests Seattle's coaching staff already has a very clear vision of where things are headed. Perhaps the biggest takeaway involves something that has become increasingly common across today's NFL: pre-snap motion and offensive shifts. Fowler expects the Seahawks to use significantly more of both this season, and that's important because these concepts are no longer just small wrinkles that offensive coordinators sprinkle into game plans. Around the league, they have become fundamental pieces of modern offensive football. The reason is simple. Motion forces defenses to reveal information before the snap. Every adjustment a defender makes can provide clues about whether the defense is playing man coverage, zone coverage, or preparing to blitz. That information gives the quarterback a much better chance of making the correct decision before the football is ever snapped. Rather than reacting after the play begins, the offense can anticipate what's coming and attack the defense accordingly. Seattle already incorporated motion into its offense last season, but Fowler believes that number is going to climb even higher. Instead of simply moving players for the sake of movement, the Seahawks appear ready to make motion one of the central building blocks of their offensive identity. It's designed to create favorable matchups, confuse defenders, and make life easier for everyone involved. Imagine a receiver like Jaxon Smith-Njigba beginning a play lined up on one side of the formation before moving across the field just seconds before the snap. That movement isn't random. It forces defenders to communicate. If one defender follows him across the formation, the quarterback immediately gains valuable information. If nobody follows him, that's another clue entirely. Every motion becomes part of a larger puzzle that helps the offense identify weaknesses before the play even begins. For a quarterback like Sam Darnold, that extra information can be incredibly valuable. Instead of trying to diagnose the defense after the snap, while defenders are already charging toward him, he has a better understanding of what he's likely to face before the play develops. That allows him to get the football out faster, make smarter reads, and take advantage of favorable matchups all across the field. According to Fowler, this expanded emphasis on motion and shifts isn't just about making the offense look more creative. It's about efficiency. It's about creating easier throws, opening running lanes, and putting skill position players in situations where they can maximize their strengths instead of constantly battling defenders in predictable alignments. That philosophy also connects directly to another player Fowler highlighted, Rashid Shaheed. Few players appear to be generating more internal optimism this offseason than Shaheed. Fowler reported that he was one of Seattle's standout performers during spring practices. And perhaps even more importantly, he expects Shaheed to take on a much larger offensive role this season. That's notable because last year often felt like Seattle only utilized one portion of Shaheed's skill set. Too frequently, his opportunities came on deep vertical routes, where the offense simply hoped to connect on an explosive play. While those opportunities certainly showcased his speed, they didn't necessarily allow him to demonstrate everything else he can do as a receiver. This season could be very different. Rather than limiting him primarily to downfield shots, Fowler expects Seattle to involve Shaheed much more frequently on short and intermediate routes. That change could dramatically increase both his target volume and his overall impact within the offense. Instead of waiting several series for one deep opportunity, Shaheed may now become a much more consistent part of the passing attack. Quick crossing routes, timing throws, underneath concepts, and intermediate patterns could all become regular parts of his workload. Those kinds of touches not only keep a receiver involved, but also force defenses to respect every level of the field. If defenses begin focusing heavily on stopping Jaxon Smith-Njigba, additional opportunities naturally emerge elsewhere. A more balanced passing attack makes everyone more dangerous. Rather than relying almost exclusively on one primary receiving option, Seattle could spread the football around much more effectively while still allowing its top playmakers to produce. Fowler's confidence also appears to align with what has reportedly been happening throughout off-season practices. Shaheed has continued making explosive plays during workouts, drawing attention from people around the organization and reinforcing the belief that this could be the season where everything finally comes together. The physical talent has never really been the question. His speed has always been obvious, and his ability to change the momentum of games has already shown up in multiple ways. The challenge has simply been building complete chemistry within the offense and expanding the variety of ways he can be utilized. If those two pieces finally come together, Seattle may have another legitimate offensive weapon capable of changing games every single week. Perhaps that's why Fowler's latest reporting has generated so much optimism. Instead of talking about isolated improvements, every piece seems connected. More motion creates easier reads. Easier reads create better opportunities. Better opportunities allow explosive players like Shaheed to become larger parts of the offense. Everything fits into the same overall vision Seattle appears to be building. If these reports accurately reflect what the Seahawks are preparing for this season, the offense could look noticeably different once games actually begin. Not because the entire playbook has been reinvented, but because the details, the timing, the movement, the formations, and the distribution of touches may all evolve in ways that make the unit significantly more difficult to defend. With Jeremy Fowler pointing toward a bigger offensive role for Shaheed and a much heavier emphasis on pre-snap motion throughout Seattle's scheme, do you think these changes could unlock the offense in a way Seahawks fans haven't seen before? Or is there another player you believe will benefit the most from this new approach? Jeremy Fowler's reporting didn't stop with the passing game, though, because another major update centered around the Seahawks' backfield, and more specifically, Zach Charbonnet. After suffering an ACL injury during the postseason, one of the biggest questions surrounding Seattle has been when the running back could realistically make his return. Throughout the offseason, there had been plenty of references to July as an important checkpoint. But Fowler helped explain why that particular month carries so much significance. According to the report, Charbonnet is expected to have an important medical evaluation that will give both the coaching staff and the organization a much clearer picture of where he stands in his recovery. Rather than simply waiting and hoping, Seattle is approaching the process carefully, allowing the medical staff to determine exactly how quickly he can progress before making any decisions about training camp or the early portion of the season. The encouraging news is that Charbonnet has already been working his way back and continues to make positive progress. Fowler indicated that an early October return is becoming a realistic time frame, and considering the severity of the injury, that's an encouraging development for both the player and the Seahawks. Getting a productive running back into the rotation that early would give Seattle another important weapon as the season begins to reach its most demanding stretch. The running back room is one of the more intriguing position groups on the roster because of its overall depth. Even while Charbonnet continues his recovery, there is genuine competition developing, and that competition only becomes stronger once everyone is healthy. Having multiple capable backs allows the offense to stay fresh throughout a long season, while also giving the coaching staff flexibility depending on weekly matchups. That leads directly into another player Fowler highlighted in his off-season evaluation, Jadarian Price. Among all the encouraging observations from Seattle's off-season program, Fowler's comments about Price may have been some of the most exciting. The biggest compliment centered around one specific trait that often separates productive running backs from great ones: vision. In an offense expected to feature outside zone concepts, vision becomes absolutely critical. A running back must be patient enough to allow blocks to develop, while also recognizing exactly when to accelerate through the opening. That combination isn't always easy to find, but according to Fowler's evaluation, Price has already shown outstanding instincts in that area. That's one reason there is growing belief that he could see the field sooner rather than later. Coaches can teach technique, improve footwork, and refine ball security, but natural vision is much harder to develop. If Price consistently demonstrates an ability to read blocks and identify running lanes, he gives himself an opportunity to earn meaningful snaps much earlier than many rookies typically do. His previous production only adds to that excitement. Despite not carrying the workload of a full-time starter, Price consistently made the most of his opportunities. Nearly every chance he received resulted in productive yardage, and his touchdown totals reflected a player capable of finishing drives whenever his number was called. Efficiency like that naturally grabs the attention of coaches looking for reliable contributors. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, Fowler's overall report paints an encouraging image of where Seattle believes this roster is heading. The offense is expected to become more creative, with increased motion and shifting before the snap. Rashid Shaheed is projected to receive a much larger and more versatile role within the passing game. Zach Charbonnet continues making encouraging progress in his recovery, while Jadarian Price is already earning praise for one of the most important traits a running back can possess. Rather than relying on one headline move, Seattle appears focused on improving multiple areas simultaneously. Every report points toward a coaching staff that wants more flexibility, more balance, and more ways to create favorable situations for its playmakers. If those off-season plans translate onto the field once training camp and the regular season begin, Seahawks fans could be watching an offense that looks more dynamic from week to week than it did a year ago. Jeremy Fowler's latest updates certainly provide reasons for optimism, but as always, the next step is seeing these ideas come to life once the games begin. Off-season reports can build excitement, yet execution ultimately determines how successful those plans become. For now, though, the early signs suggest Seattle is moving in a direction that should have fans eager to see training camp get underway. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the latest Seahawks news, reports, and rumors. Leave a like if you're excited about everything Jeremy Fowler had to say, and be sure to check out the video that's now on your screen. because that's where you'll find even more Seahawks coverage. If you want the latest updates first, this is the place to be.